Before we get into this whole debacle, I just want to say that I consider myself an incredibly lucky basketball fan. Not because my team has won a championship or anything like that, but because my favorite college player as a kid got drafted to my favorite team, the New Orleans Hornets. When Chris got drafted to the New Orleans Hornets in 05, you really could not tell me anything. Now, I know that a lot has transpired over the years, and a lot of people don't really like Chris, and I get that. But I will personally never be one of those guys, even if he does have some beef with one of New Orleans' favorite players right now.
We knew Alvarado. We knew he was going to be picking up, high energy. He was a fan favorite. He played hard, but it wasn't enough. You know what I mean?
A lot of people don't know this, but initially, Chris Paul never wanted to leave New Orleans. He more so felt like it was something that he had to do, with the franchise having more questions than answers.
I tell you, they was coming to practice and telling us that the team was leaving. They was telling us that the team was moving to Kansas City. They told us that the team was moving to, San Diego, somewhere in California. Like, me and David West had been there, you know what I mean? And we never spoke on this. I don't know why today I'm gonna say this, but they was coming to tell us that the team was moving. First, there was this one guy, Mr. Schwest, that was gonna buy the team at one point, and then, the NBA took over the team or whatnot. So when I left, it wasn't like I'm leaving New Orleans because I want to be out of here. Like, the team was saying that they were moving and going to do this and going in all these other different directions. So that's why me and D West was like, okay, it's time for us to move on. Like, that city, man, listen, and I know. Like, I will never have another bond like I had with that city, right?
You got drafted right before Katrina,
I got drafted a month before Katrina, right? 2 months before Katrina. Like, the city of New Orleans will forever hold the deepest place in my heart, right? My first 2 years was in Oklahoma, so I'm grateful for that. But then we went back to New Orleans. Like, man, I got real family that live in that city.
Your foundation does work there too.
Yeah,
right?
My sister-in-law from New Orleans, Randy, Kev, the Greenups, like, them, that's my real family that's there, man. So I hoop. I try not to trip at all, whatnot, but like, when I play back in New Orleans and people start booing and doing all this, I be looking around like, are y'all serious? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I be cool on the court because I get it or whatnot, but.
This is strictly the OG Hornets fan in me saying this, but the timing of CP3's comments are interesting as everybody is wondering what's next for Chris. But first, today's content is brought to you guys by PrizePicks. For those that don't know, PrizePicks is by far the easiest way to play daily fantasy in states such as California, Georgia, Texas, Florida, and more. PrizePicks is mad easy, mad fun, and super rewarding if you know hoops. As you can see by this lineup that I'm putting in, you don't have to spend a lot to win big. What PrizePicks does is it puts you against the projections to make these already epic games 50 times more interesting. And now, whenever you sign up using code COOP, you'll get your initial deposit instantly doubled. So remember, guys, use code COOP, and thank you, PrizePicks, for sponsoring today's content. While I think that CP3's demise has been greatly overstated, the injury issues haven't. When the Suns fell in 6 games to the Nuggets in the Western Conference semifinals, where was Chris Paul? That's right, he was sadly injured yet again. The unfortunate reality is that Chris Paul just made 38 in May and isn't getting any younger. At this stage of his career, he's somebody that I would hate to rely on or pay a ton of money, but also somebody that I would love to have on my team at the same time, if that makes any sort of sense. And what's funny is that I feel like the Phoenix Suns feel the exact same way. While this season we've seen multiple reports stating that the Suns might address the future of their point guard position, and even just a few days ago we saw reports that stated that Chris might be cut by the Suns altogether, there is a catch. June 7th, Chris Haynes tweeted that the Phoenix Suns have notified star Chris Paul that he would be waived, making the future Hall of Famer one of the top free agents this offseason. He would add that Chris Paul plans to play for several more years and is eager to help a team contend for a championship. Well, check this out. Shortly after Chris Haynes dropped this bomb of a report on us, Shams will come out and basically say that nothing is concrete, and that as a matter of fact, the Suns and Chris Paul are actually exploring multiple options, including a trade, stretching his contract, or waiving and re-signing him in free agency. Woj would basically co-sign this notion, saying that Paul would like to continue his partnership with the Suns and would welcome a quick decision by the franchise, while also stating that the Suns are also exploring trade options for DeAndre Ayton, which just so happens to be a complex situation of its own that we have to break down very soon. Guys, in the comments below, drop your best DeAndre Ayton trade. New Suns coach Frank Vogel would even go on record and say that he's very interested in coaching Chris, and that if he were to coach him, that he'd be smart about managing his minutes and overall load.
Obviously, there was a misunderstanding yesterday. We did not waive Chris, as was reported, but there's ongoing conversations about all of the options to improve the roster. You know, I personally communicated with Chris and feel strongly about the opportunity to work with him. He's someone I've just had an immense respect for over the years, not only just his game, his toughness, IQ. He's just one of the great winners our game has ever seen. You know, he's done so much for this team the last few years. So I'm really hopeful to have an opportunity to work with him this next year, and I think he can really help us get over the top.
If Vogel really does want to coach Chris, he has the hope that the team is ignoring the reported flurry of trade calls for him after the rest of the NBA discovered that the team would be waiving him. For those that don't know, one of the major reasons that the Suns might even be comfortable cutting a player of Chris Paul's salary and caliber is because only $15.8 million of his $30.8 million salary is guaranteed for the 2023-24 season. To be short, waiving and stretching CP3 gives the Suns more cap and flexibility going forward, which should be vital for a team and owner that has shown that they aren't afraid to make a splash, be it big or small. The catch here is that according to Mark Stein, if Chris were to be waived and have his salary stretched so that Phoenix could take advantage of the full mid-level exception of $12+ million, there would be complications to him potentially returning to Phoenix, seeing as they'd probably be hoping that he'd come back for only the minimum, which Mark Stein noted at that point, why not go to the Lakers or somebody else?
Minimum exception. I think the two teams that we're going to have our eyes on are both teams in Los Angeles. When it looks at the Clippers, who are in need of a point guard, they would also have the veteran minimum exception. And then, of course, the Los Angeles Lakers, who have more money to give Chris Paul with one of their bigger exceptions. Yeah. It's important to note, though, Chris Paul would not be allowed to double dip. You can't take your $16 million from Phoenix. They make $12 million from the Lakers. There is an offset in that contract here. So certainly the Lakers would have more money to give him, but all eyes would certainly be on both Los Angeles teams.
Now, if Chris were to actually be cut, there is some smoke to the Lakers rumors, as Woj has stated that there is a possibility that the Lakers and Clippers could potentially be interested. After all, CP3's offseason home is in Los Angeles. Is this a bad time to bring up that Chris Paul hates that he never got the opportunity to play with Kobe Bryant on the Los Angeles Lakers after that infamous trade was vetoed? As an OG Hornets fan, even I'm mad that Stern vetoed that trade. I don't care how bad it was. I just want to know how many rings that a prime Chris Paul and Kobe Bryant produce. To remove myself from Fantasyland, it is worth noting that D'Angelo Russell and Russell Westbrook are currently free agents. And while there are some reports out there, who really knows what their future holds? Honestly, at least to me, it's not really surprising that the Lakers or Clippers could be interested in Chris, especially if Chris were to come cheap and was willing to take on a small role. He's not the elite point guard that he once was, but he's still a very good player that averaged 14 points, 4 rebounds, and 9 assists this past season. I'm standing by what I said earlier. I would love to have him, but I would hate to rely on him. Now, what did surprise me in all of this, and probably shouldn't have, is that the Warriors would have reported interest in Chris Paul. And also, according to Kevin O'Connor, the San Antonio Spurs, aka the winners of the Wembanyama sweepstakes, would have the exact same thing. But wait, this entire situation somehow gets more ridiculous. And I'm sure by now you guys are asking, how in the world is that possible? Well, according to Ramona Shelburne, somehow, some way, the Suns are a team to watch for James Harden. And I quote, "The Phoenix Suns don't waive Chris Paul unless they feel pretty good about somebody else. And I want you to keep your eye on James Harden. I don't want to report anything, but that was in the wind the past month or so. Everybody thinks it's Philly or Houston, but I don't know. There have been discussions in the wind." As a Harden fan, I speak for myself when I say that I don't want to see him in Phoenix unless he's coming absurdly cheap. I think that his name even being brought up in this discussion is disgusting. Phoenix fans, I'm really sorry if you want Harden, and I'm telling you what you don't want to hear right now. It's just that I think that this team should prioritize depth in rounding out the roster over creating another top-heavy team. With that being said, I can't emphasize enough that I think that this Suns team isn't that far away from figuring everything out, especially if they nail the Ayton situation, which happens to be a major if. In the comments below, let me know what you guys think of everything. Clicking the video on the screen right now is a great way to support my channel. I'm Get Like Coop, bringing you guys the scoop until our next upload.